Video games have been an integral part of many people's formative years growing up in the 80s and 90s. They lived through the meteoric rise of Nintendo in the 80s, who more or less saved the home gaming industry. The war between Nintendo and Sega in the late 80s and early 90s, where Sega did what Nintendo don't, and the rise and takeover of Sony's PlayStation in the mid-90s to the early 2000s. During the time of the tremendous popularity of Mortal Kombat coming to home gaming consoles, the Supreme Court would get involved in putting ratings on games to protect kids from overly violent games. This would be reinforced with the huge popularity of Grand Theft Auto 3. Folks growing up in this time also remember the many commercials and ads against drugs and alcohol use. Don't Drink and Drive was everywhere. The DARE program was being enacted in schools across the country, and there were many portrayals in movies and television of the perils of using these substances. Today, the video game industry is a multi-hundred-billion-dollar a year industry and is more a part of mainstream culture than it's ever been before. While drugs and alcohol haven't come close to disappearing, they don't have as much of a hold on society as it did in our parents' time. Meanwhile, depression and loneliness are at an all-time high. The divorce rate is through the roof, and many have walked away from engaging in romantic relationships with the opposite sex altogether. We live in an era of uber-feminism, MGTOW, and the manosphere movement telling people to not even bother with opposite-sex relationships. We also have an inordinate amount of people who have yet to leave their parents' home, or at least staying with their parents a lot longer. There are many factors contributing to these happenings, the biggest one being the ever-rising cost of living. But people who play video games tend to be stigmatized. Those invested heavily in gaming are seen as lazy and socially underdeveloped. They've been labeled as geeks, nerds, neckbeards, weebs, and outright losers. They've been portrayed as those who still live with their parents, who only have friends with people online, and are incapable of getting a date. With so much stigma on those who have invested time into gaming, should video games be avoided? The answer is, it depends. There are those who will tell you if you want to be successful, you must completely eliminate video games from your life. But is this necessary? Many have spent an inordinate amount of time on women. There are endless stories of those who have ruined their lives on account of females. They spend up all their money, make horrible life decisions, destroy their careers, and even get themselves killed, all over a woman. The MGTOW Manosphere movement is telling men to eliminate females from their lives if they want to succeed. Should we get rid of women? The pushback against such measures says there's nothing wrong with women in and of themselves, but our dealings with them are improper. Can the same not be said about video games? Video games are an activity like any other activity, such as fishing, hiking, reading, gambling, billiards, biking, knitting, painting, etc. When properly balanced, these are all just hobbies someone does in their spare time to unwind and relax. When unbalanced, these things can take away from someone's productivity and self-development. Everyone needs a break, something which allows them to recharge in order to get back to the grind. We can't survive as a species if we have no dealings with women. We do, however, need to reevaluate their place in our lives and how we deal with them. Same thing with video games. What one chooses to do in their off time isn't an issue. But when your chosen diversion affects your productivity, this is when there's a problem. We must earn our leisure by being productive people in society. When you are seen by society as valuable, no one cares what you do in your spare time.